Welcome to Saga Thursday, your regular source for Saga miniatures game goodness. Today, me and Hamza are finishing our review of the Byzantines. Designate one of your mounted units engaged in this melee. At the end of this melee, your unit will disengage, even if the opposing units were also forced to disengage. The movement of this disengagement is increased to L. Long, large, 12 inches. Wow, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So this can be good combined with the contos, like you move in and then you ride away.
Okay. Yeah, if you want to put the dice in, you can move in, string your guys out, and then pull back. Interesting stuff here. So, a couple things. So, it looks like there could be a double disengagement here if they have to as well.
Also, if you wipe them out, you can use this as well.
So, a disengagement rule. So, you can't... I'm thinking about the specifications. So you just can't go within short of anybody, right? Of any enemy unit. That's
no,
the only...
I think that's correct.
Does it have to be like directly away from them? Does it have to follow those? Or can you get really flexible? Maybe I'll take a quick look.
I actually never thought about it that way, but most of the time I just move away so people are kind of, yeah, sure, do it. But this is really what makes the Hurt Guard very good in this army and hard to catch, and a good counter punch unit or a punch unit. So it makes them like really hard to catch, and you can also move very quickly with this ability. You can like move up L. Fight, do your charge move, fight something, do the withdrawal, and then charge something away, or something like that.
Yes, that's kind of what I was thinking of. There's the aspect
you can get
where
very
you can
far with this.
pull back and get out of harm's way, or you can kind of move around and get right in the face of the next unit you want to go after.
But if the disengagement rules are, saying stuff, I don't know. Well, we'll have to check on it.
It doesn't really specify. It specifies that if the attacker and defender both have to disengage, the attacker moves first. So I guess that's a good point too. Is you could use this on your turn, which is kind of what we've been talking about, but you could also use it in the opponent's turn to disengage really far. So
one of the things here is that when you're fighting this challenge scenario with the warlords kind of in the middle, it can be a good way to. I mean, if you take the lead or something, you can use this to like get away. Because the problem with mounted warlords in that scenario is they always they can't get past the warlord pride. They're too proud.
That's a good point.
They want to fight. Yeah.
Cool.
Should we go on to the next one? Or?
Yeah, friendly shields. You want to chime in on that?
Yeah. During step 6 of the melee, you may cancel each casualty suffered by your unit by removing a friendly non-levy model that is within S of your unit. And this one is also run on helmets and rares. So uncommons and rares.
Those helmets.
Yeah.
Curse them. So, non-levy, so you're going to be removing warriors.
Most of the time.
Most of the time, yeah.
Well, all of the time.
Yeah, I guess you could remove Hearthguard from a different Hearthguard unit if you did have multiple.
Or maybe save the warlord if you kind of miscalculated what's going to happen. In like a defensive situation, they charge your warlord and he's with his Hearthguard and you don't want him to die. Can be used.
How is that different than the warlords one?
Because that's in a very short, from my memory.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's true.
So you get some.
It's very short. So yeah, if you take the slaughter to your warlord and you need those extra 2 inches worth of bodies. That's a good point.
It can be. I mean, if you put him like among a sea of infantry, he can be very tough to kill him. I mean, he can
Yes.
If you use this, because S is, it's much further away.
Yeah, basically, you can get the whole unit pretty much versus like half typically. So, okay.
Yeah.
This is pretty cool. Looks like another one that's tough to use offensively.
I don't think it is that much because it's like usually you're sending your herd guard in and they don't suffer a lot of casualties in the first place. So, I mean, if you can remove 2 or 3 models, that's fine. And what I like this abilities for, it means that you can actually send your bow-mounted herd guard into combat sometimes. And they will, they're armor 4, so they will take hits. But with this, you can make sure that they don't, like, evaporate. If you know what I mean. So,
yeah.
So that's a good way to use this, I think.
That makes sense. Yeah, where Strategicon, you're wanting to get, like, all 10 of your friendly guys within short. Where this one, yeah, if it's Hearthguard, you're probably going to take a few hits. So if you get 3 or 4 guys, is good enough. Just shunting them off to the side. But yeah, seems like a cool ability. Another way to keep the Hearthguard alive. Might really change what the enemy does if they know that they can't really go after your Hearthguard like that. If you're just gonna assign all the hits to your warriors. What do you think about that?
I think that I should stop drinking this stupid beer. No, I see what you mean, but I have a hard time to use this in defense, like in the opposing player's turn, because what he can do is like he can push units away by initiating combats, so he can kind of isolate your herd guard, or he can just, this is the problem with these type of abilities, is that they don't stop anyone from actually dying. They just like shuffle it around, But I mean, for your opponent, he can say like, okay, I'll just charge your warriors. Then it's fine. Something will explode. It doesn't give them actual defensive power, or it's kind of you're just substituting casualties basically.
That's a good point. Yeah, you're not keeping anybody alive.
On the defense, your opponent chooses where he will go. So it's you're not sure if this is gonna work.
Okay.
I'd rather put the helmet on our support archers than this in the defense.
Okay, good point. Mutual support is up next. This is the first ability where you can use any dice. Little refreshment here. It's a activation reaction ability. Use this ability when an enemy unit is activated within medium of any of your bow-armed units. That enemy unit may not engage in melee any bow-armed units if it can engage any of your non-bow equipped units with its movement. So this looks like it could be some fun here. What do you think of this? I mean, it's not going to stop them from going into melee, but you can direct them a little bit towards a favorable matchup. Perchance. Do you use this one a lot? I guess how I'm trying to envision. We need the marker board.
And I have my notes here, and the only thing that says I wrote for this ability is it never fucking works. So it never works, Rodge. You can't. This doesn't work out in the real life. So if they see that you put, they will, charge something else, or, the reason it doesn't work is basically he has to start within M, right? So we're only talking about slow infantry, or,
Oh, true.
It's, yeah. I've always been disappointed in this, and I've stopped using it. I don't know how it sounds good, but you can't make it work. It's too hard.
Okay. Yeah, it seems like a lot of.
Do you know what I mean? I mean, people are faster. Yeah, and they can also like, okay, he can charge something else, but like what? Like another warrior unit, or it's bad.
Yeah, I mean, their preference would be to charge the archers, but okay, well, I'll just charge the warriors. That's fine. It's not actually saving anybody. It's not like canceling an activation. and you're having to
Yeah,
use
that
a
would be
dice
nicer.
to basically keep one particular unit alive in this one really specific situation. So
Usually your opponent isn't like a place to hit multiple units, so you're just wasting dice to put. I mean, you know what I mean? So he can hit, like, he has 2 units and he can hit 2 of your units. If you block this, then he will just move and hit something else. And then, I mean, this is so hard to pull off. It's, you know, it's a good idea, but it doesn't work.
Okay. Well, we won't spend any more time on that one then. Maybe we can move on to common efforts. Will that make you happier? Okay.
Yeah, it does. A lot happier. Really satisfying. Okay. Should I go through it?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so this is orders or orders reaction. So it means you can use it in your opponent's orders phase just after he rolled his dice or just after he placed his dice. So what it does is take 2 of your non-levy units within S of each other and take 2 fatigues from one unit, up to 2 fatigues from one unit, and move it to the other. And this is very useful in this battle board, and especially with the ability that comes after this.
Yeah.
So the way this is used is to pull fatigues away from shooting units because they have low armor, and like the walking bow guys, they have armor 3, and once it gets it to armor 2 in close combat, they're gonna explode. You know?
Yeah, it's no good.
So you wanna make them clear, and a common tactic I've seen here is to use like a 4-man warrior, spear-armed warrior unit that's like in the central of your formation that works like a fatigue sink, and you just pile fatigues into them all the time.
Mm-hmm.
That
makes sense. Yeah, because I mean they could, you know, there's no limit necessarily. If you're never going to move them. You don't have to worry if they have 5 or 6 or something. Yeah, have you had like 6?
I had 16 once.
Whoa!
16
Wow!
New high score.
Wow, yeah, wow. That is a lot of fatigue, my man. Wow.
Anglo-Danes, man.
Oh, yeah. You guys are going to soak it all up. We're so sleepy. Yeah. They're just laying on the ground like cats. Oh, funny.
One more thing about this is also useful like in the late game where you have those like 1, 2, 3 man unit and you need something important functioning, and your opponent's going to try to put fatigues on that, and you can just pull away all the time and make them fresh. So this is a really good ability.
Okay.
Much better than what was the other one called?
Mutual support.
Mutual support.
Good deal. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
but again, if you want to use it early, you need some pre-planning on how to. I mean, if you're going to have like a 4-man unit in your force or a smaller unit, that's not important that you can pile fatigues on.
Mm-hmm. Like you said, some of the other abilities, it's not taking any fatigues away; it's just shuffling them around. But that's a great point about the really tiny units at the end of the game that usually just sit there and not do much. You might have some options getting them, trying to get them within short, and then start soaking up fatigues for your one, fresh unit of a big dude. So cool ability, great buy. It's just definitely that common dice. So
yeah, it's excellent.
Good to see that.
One word of caution is that again, the Pagan Rust, they have the ability to kill dudes with fatigues. So you have to be careful if you face them.
Oh, true. Yeah. In the
Anglo what I do is I kind of put the fatigue on my warlord from the others because they can't kill him.
Okay, an interesting idea.
Their ability doesn't work like that. But again, you get a lot of fatigues on your warlord, and that's sometimes not so good.
Not so good, yeah. Okay. Well, I'm looking at the bottom right here. We got BASILEUS. Hopefully this is the awesome be-all, end-all ability. But it takes a common and a helmet there, uncommon. Activation ability. Activate any number of friendly units within L of your warlord. These activations do not generate any fatigue. your warlord immediately takes a number of fatigues equal to the number of units activated in this way. So that's kind of cool, kind of themey.
Yeah.
Because he's like handing out the orders. He's not the fighty kind of warlord like the Vikings or those kind of guy. He's the
bent over maps and shit.
Yeah. Cool.
Reading and stuff. Yeah, this is a good one. The possibilities are endless here, Rodge. Endless possibilities.
Awesome.
You can actually you can move across the board. I've done this plenty of times. You have your herd card back. You kind of move them up with the regular movement, or just we obey, and then you use this, and then you hit units like that weren't expecting to fight. And with some other, with like maybe support archers pile in or something like that, you can really do damage when they're not expecting it. Mm-hmm. So that's one way of using it, like getting hard to reach units, redeploying when you have to do that. Sometimes you build like your square, and then your opponent tries to outmaneuver you, and you can like redeploy. Mm-hmm. Or just get a shit ton of shooting.
Yeah. I mean, with the scouting ability, you could get a levy unit doing three activations potentially without generating fatigues. It's pretty awesome that it doesn't take a rare, because quite a few boards have an ability like this where they can activate a bunch of units, but it usually takes almost always takes a rare and an uncommon, or a rare and a rare, like on the Anglo-Saxon board. There's a similar ability in like the Welsh. And so you can't always bank on it the way that this would be bankable, because almost every turn you could do this. You would have the dice for it if you wanted to, if that worked into your plan.
But
you
have to understand that you get the fatigues, and you have to have a plan for the fatigues. So usually I don't activate my warlord. I do this and then activate him later for a rest, so he can remove like one of them. And then maybe pile something off with common efforts or something. So it's kind of, I mean, if you're like in turn 2 and you have 3 fatigues on your warlord, you're in a bad shape for the rest of the game.
You're gonna have to put dice into shutting it off with the common efforts. It's gonna be pretty dice intensive, but it's cool though when with those other factions, that one turn that you really, really want to be able to do that. You may or may not be able to. With this, if you have some tricky thing that you do in all your game, you're going to be able to do it on the turn that you want it, as long as you manage your stuff correctly. So, seems like a great ability. Is there anything else you want to say about Basilius? Looks like it has numerous uses.
Yeah, I want to say again that if you have like a lot of small units, it kind of stops being worth it to use this, unless it's some kind of scenario thing you're doing, like you're supposed to move something or something like that. But you won't get a lot of combat power out of small units with this. So that's like a general take with this board. Okay.
Well, let's talk about the unit selection then, because looks like there's a lot of things going on here. We've got at least one good ability with the levies, but then a lot of the other abilities can't be combined with the levies. It says non-levy models, and some of these, there's a lot of shooting type abilities.
Massed archery, for example, can be used with the levy. It says archery, but it works with like javelins as well.
And then support archers specifically says bow armed guys. Yeah. So there's, if there weren't these hidden limitations, the levy would be super awesome. But I think everything is balanced and fine. So you have the distinction between the non-bow Hearthguard for the Kantos ability, but then for support archers, the bow Hearthguard would be awesome.
Oh, really?
And, you have these other abilities that can kind of keep them alive. So what do you like to take after playing all these games? Is there one way that you like to do it, or you just mix it up between a couple different things, defending how you're feeling?
Yeah, well, the way this is worth mentioning, that the way we usually play Saga here in Sweden means that during deployment we get to choose the equipment most of the time, or all of the time. So depending on what I'm kind of facing, that's like one of the strengths of the Byzantines, that you can actually mix like ranged weapons or close combat weapons almost everywhere where it's important with the warriors and herd guard. But I usually use 2 points of herd guard, 1 point of levy, and the rest warriors.
Okay.
And then I kit out the equipment depending on what I'm facing.
Yeah, so that sounds basically what my first attempt was going to be when I ran these guys. I was thinking 2 points of Hearthguard. And 1 unit of 8 is what I was thinking. A unit of levy, either the nomads or the jav guys, and then just the rest warriors. So for the warriors, then how does their composition look then? You can change it per game, like you mentioned, but is it mostly bow guys or mostly spears, or yeah?
The problem with the bow guys is they're a big target and they're very vulnerable to like anything. So,
The
thing I like to use is I like to use 2 10s and a 4. That's like 24 warriors, 3 points, right?
3 points. Mm-hmm.
So lately I've been playing a lot like 10, like all of them spear armed and the herd guard bow armed. But one way of doing that is also like spear armed herd guard, and then one of the 10s is like archers. Mm-hmm. It kind of depends. Playing 10s has some risks, like playing these big warrior units, because some factions can do a lot of damage to them and make you like trade a big unit to a small one. Like North Scales are experts at this, but also the Crusaders and some other factions that do like a ton of damage. So I would say that this is one way of running the Byzantines. I also know that people like to run a lot of foot warriors only, like 5 points of warriors and then maybe levy or maybe a priest. That seems to be like a warband that doesn't rely so much on the board to function, right? The priest can get... Because the priest helps them. I think then they use like the what's it called? The violent priest.
the warrior priest. Yeah.
That one kind of gets you attacks on your warriors, and this is something this board lacks, right?
Okay. Yeah, he definitely does, and he likes those big warrior units hanging around with him. So I could definitely see that.
So that's like 4 10s. 2 of them are maybe bow armed, and 2 of them are spear armed. So you can still use like the support archers and the other abilities, but you also get a lot of infantry power. I haven't used that one myself because I like the herd guard and I spend a lot of time painting them, so I'm gonna use it.
Yeah, I mean they look cool. What models do you use for
use
the
like
Gripping
the
Beast guys?
Gripping Beasts. Metals and the plastics for the levy. If you could go to like my blog, the Scattered Dice.
Yes.
Yeah, it's called Scattered Dice. There are some pictures of the warband. I think it looks kind of nice.
Okay. Yeah, the Hearthguard models are really cool looking. I'll throw a link to the blog down there. I know we mentioned it before, but good deal. So what's...
did I answer your questions, or did I just like ramble?
No, yeah, it doesn't look like there's necessarily one way to do things.
Yeah, and that's actually
between the Hearthguard and the warriors. Yeah.
That's actually one of the greatest things with this faction, is that there are a lot of options, and I would say that the thing is that, in my opinion, the battle board by itself is kind of weak. And to like win games, you need these extra elements to the Byzantines. Like you need to allow them to switch their gear to be to remain like competitive, because the board itself doesn't do damage. It doesn't have a lot of trickery, like stops your opponent doing stuff. You know, it doesn't have like the raw combat power to just like remove units from the table and so on. So I think it's important that they get this chance to like change the war gear, and that's one of the things that makes them good, in my opinion. Because if they didn't have this, then it would be very, very difficult.
Okay. Yeah,
I've also
that's a good point.
I've also tried running like a lot of hurt guards, and it can be effective. I've tried like the six hurt guards, 2 of each type, right? And then warrior blocks with that. That's also something that you can do, like 2 big warrior blocks of 12 or something like that. I tried it one game, and it was okay, but it wasn't. I kind of missed the flexibility of the other having more warriors and a levy unit, of course. Let's talk a little bit more about the levies, because they're very useful on this board. And the way I use the levies is to do like 2 things. I use the javelin arm because I like to block people from shooting or reaching important units. Like I want my spearmen alive, and I want the bow. If I'm using like bow warriors, I want them alive as long as possible. So one way of like protecting yourself from like Irish shooting or something like really violent, like a Crusader charge, you put this big block of levies in front and let them shoot through that first, or just put them in the way. So that's and the levies go really well with this board, with how you can activate them easily and so on. So
yeah, I think that makes sense with the activation abilities. You're not using the levies on other boards. You might be losing out on other abilities because you have to use your uncommons and rares just to shunt them along, or keep your warlord next to them. You're really kind of altering your tactics to get the most use out of those guys. Where these, it's not really, you're not really paying a penalty. Yeah, and the way that the board is set up with multiple units, everybody helping each other out, you're probably going to have a lot of units anyways, so you're not worried about Saga dice generation the way that you might be with other, like the Anglo-Saxons, taking those levies. It was nice.
If they get a bonus,
but it kind of hurts your
trouble.
yeah, it hurts your Saga dice generation because you're always going for big units. So I got a little thing going for them. So that's cool. So we kind of chat about this a little bit before our chat today, but so what scenarios are you liking with these guys? Anything hurting you in particular?
Again, this is a bit, there are like some kind of peculiarities to the way we play in Sweden. We use certain scenarios from like the British tournament meta, and we don't use certain from the books. So it's kind of hard to say.
Okay.
I can say like generally, since I use a lot of, since I depend on the mounted herd guard to do the job, I don't like having a lot of terrain.
Okay.
Because of the fatigue they get, which is extremely penalizing on this board, because they don't have a way of doing something with fatigue before a combat, right? You can do it like in the beginning of your turn or in the beginning of the opponent's turn. So this can be a problem. And while we're talking about the herd guard, there's one more thing that when I use like the spear-armed herd guard, they're more of a counter-punch unit. But since they are so much points of the force, you kind of need to use them a lot to get like the value from them. So they are, in my opinion, like better than the bow-armed ones. But the bow-armed arms you can use them every turn to do damage, right? So if you can get to use them in 6 turns, you can get a lot of value from them, even though if like in a 1-1-1 situation, they're not so powerful. So that's why I lately been using those more. And also if there are terrain, you can shoot in and you don't suffer the consequences, right? You can still do damage even if it's more difficult. So that's a thing to consider as well.
Yeah, so the bow guys are, they're vulnerable, but in some ways, it's less risky. The the melee guys, they have to go into melee. They have to do that, in order.
And sometimes you kind of, because melee is so risky, you don't want to use it too early because that's your.
Anything can happen, and you just have this unit kind of sitting back there. With that bows, at least to be shooting, and there's some of the best shooting units in the game as the Hearth Guard, the way that they can sling those dice out there. So, okay, yeah, that's really interesting.
As for scenarios, I have had a lot of difficulties with Sacred Ground. I don't know why, but I don't like splitting the army up because I want to take advantage of the geometrical abilities, the distances and so on, and you have to kind of do that there.
Okay, yeah, so, you kind of mentioned the mobbing up
the castle.
The castle. So if Sacred Ground, if that castle is split into 3, not going to be as strong. Or if the river scenario where you have 2 forts to defend, that could also be to your detriment potentially. So I don't
know about that one because you can shoot, you can go up with like the Hearth Guard and shoot across, and they can't reach you.
Yeah, that's good.
And also you can, since you move so fast with like these mass activations, the Byzantines are good at mass activating a lot of units. So if your opponent is not careful and leaves an opening, you can quickly move across the river in a way that he doesn't like. If they don't prepare for it, they can really be taken by surprise. So that one is not so much. It's just that the problem with Sacred Ground for me is that you have to like pile in and just clear the opponent from an area, and with this battle board I think that's hard to do.
I would agree with that.
And also one other thing with like the compositions, I've been talking to other people about that they don't use the Hearth Guard, they use a lot of shooting activations and shooting levy and so on. You can't really remove the opponent from, you can't really delete a unit with just like these kind of flimsy shooting abilities. You have to get in there and punch them in the dick,
Yeah, you got to go in.
And the best way to best way to do it is like with the 16 attack dice that the Hearth Guard get.
Oh yeah, good deal.
So
yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, that's how I'm gonna try it out on my first few runs here. So one thing that we kind of chat a little bit about is the Herald Hardrada, option that is quite tantalizing. I've looked at it myself, and I'd like to indulge at some point, but for my first one, I'm not going to do it. But I think you and me will have a chat about that in some future episode about the Herald Hardrada and the Varangian Guard and the Super Hearth Guard guys. Because it sounds it's almost like a completely different kind of army. The way that it operates from what we've discussed here. So I don't really know how much of what we just discussed is really applicable to that little sub army. But so we can have a chat about that fella in the future, and maybe the Basileus as well, the Cataphracti.
Could I just like conclude like the Byzantines, like how they work?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, basically this is like a defensive faction that's like built on mass activations. So they're very good at so these activations could usually be shooting, and they have like this X factor, whatever you want to call it, like the faith for the Militus Christi or the Jomsviking Wrath. For these guys, it's like the geometrical positioning. You have to learn to do that. So that's like what's the difficulty here. So I don't think this is a good faction if you just want to move in and you just fight. You have to be a bit more. I think that's like their weakness. They have like complex solutions to really simple problems, like smash the opponent. Oh, you have to take out your ruler and measure shit and do the maths and stuff like that. So when I compare them to like my Moors, their Moors are much, the Muslims, they're just, they move up and they punch people, there's no, they're much easier to use than these guys, I think.
Okay. Yeah, I would say, just going through everything here, that I would say it is more of an advanced board, whereas it's shunting stuff around in some cases. So, you have to be aware of the overall, advantage to having certain units in certain positions with or without fatigue, and when you need to make that happen, when it's worth it to throw your other guys under the bus in some situations. So, okay, cool. Well, yeah, it's been fun chatting with you again, Hamza.
Yeah.
I'm sure
Thank you.
We'll do it again. I'll be curious, in Saga 2.0, they already talked about the 12 Dark Age factions. I kind of think the Byzantines will probably be shunted in with the Crescent and Cross follow-up stuff. Do you think?
I kind of hope so, but I'm not sure. Because, I mean, if we look at it from history, I'm not a history, but I think that you could do like both. But yeah, they took part in like the Crusade era, and they fought like they fought the Turks and the Arabs, but they also fought the Normans and the Slavic tribes and so on. So they have a long, rich history. So I'm not sure. I would like it because
1,000 years.
Like when they talked about it, you seen the interview, right?
I read the follow-up interview where they talked about that.
They said that they were
factions.
They were looking to like divide each into segments, and they weren't sure that you could play those against each other, right? So I would prefer to have the Byzantines in the Crusade than in the the Dark Age one. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think like you said, there's a lot of history going on there. They could really be in both. I would just say that when you think of Dark Ages and kind of the iconic factions, I don't think they make the top ranking in there. But one thing which will be interesting, which I don't think anybody's talked about, so they've talked about Aetius and Arthur is going to be its own supplement. So those battle boards are going to stay basically the same way that they are. They might have to do some FAQ or something like that to bring it in with the new edition. But it sounded like that book is going to stay as a viewable source, for people to play with. And the Eastern Romans used the Byzantine board in that. So even when it'll be interesting to see how people do that. So potentially, even when the people move on to the new boards, there's a new Byzantine board at some point, the Aetius and Arthur could still use this old board potentially. If it's still using those.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, it's probably up to people to decide how they want to do that. They could just use the new Byzantine board, I guess. But okay. Well, I was going to say,
thanks so much
it's
for
about
being here.
Time to hit the road. People can check you out on the Scattered Dice blog, and then there's also a YouTube channel where you post some goodies from time to time. I don't know if that's you or
no, that's the
Fred.
other guy, Frederick.
Okay.
Yeah. But we have like a Saga group for people it's like for the Nordic community that I would like people to check out. So if you're interested in the game and want to find new opponents, new exciting opponents, and
play the Swedish way.
Yeah, check out our tournaments. We have one coming up in November. That's going to be here in South Sweden. So check out the buzz. What's all going on? It's called. Forget its name. Roger's gonna post it down below.
Yeah, I've got it down below. I think I have the link in every Saga video. I think I have all the links for everything. I can double check that, but pretty sure it's down there. So yeah, it's cool to hear from you guys. And I think I'm gonna talk to Frederick about the Crusaders at some point here. And I'm sure
face those guys a lot.
I'm sure you do. So I'm sure we'll have something to talk about again in the future real soon. So, all right. I know it's pretty late there. Have a good night, and we'll catch you next time. Have a good one.
Bye.
Saga.